I'm going to do something a little bit different in this video. So I know for the past couple of weeks, I have give you guys updates of what MLS is going to do in terms of restarting their season in Orlando. And a couple of days ago, we found out that that plan of restarting the season in Orlando has been approved, and that there's actually now sources saying that on Monday the league is actually going to unveil when exactly the teams are going to arrive in Orlando to start the training for the tournament and the actual schedule for the tournament that is going to happen in Orlando to restart the MLS season. But as much as I give you guys that kind of news for the past couple of weeks, I want to kind of do a video where I want to talk about what the other leagues plans are doing in terms of restarting their season, because I know there are a couple of news of the week video that I mentioned what the other leagues are trying to do, but I didn't really go too in depth in terms of what exactly they are going to do. So I'm going to try to do this in this video. And also, for the record, as much as I know I watch MLS a lot, I do watch other sports league around the world, and I do watch a lot of these European soccer league, albeit some of them I only watch like the highlights of those matches, because it's incredibly hard to wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning to watch a Premier League match on a Saturday, when usually I like to sleep in during the weekends. And also in terms of these North American league and just non-soccer league in general, baseball, MLB is a league that I watch a lot. I love to root for my Giants, and I'm gonna also get into this video that I am very angry of what MLB is trying to do in terms of starting their season after the season was delayed because of this whole pandemic. But with that being said, let's actually talk about some of these European Soccer League and what are their plan to restart, because right now the only five major European league that have returned is the Bundesliga, and I have been watching a lot of that league, since that's really the only soccer league that is on right now that I of course would always watch. But I know La Liga is setting to return on June 11, which is only a couple of days later, and the Premier League is going to be set to return on June 17, followed by Serie A that is going to be set to return on June 20th. And from what I read about these league, they're going to play games without fans, and there's going to be some games that could also be taking place at a neutral venue. And the other good thing about these league is that they have also decided to have games pretty much every single day, and that they kind of are not doing what the Bundesliga is doing, where, you know, the Bundesliga, they do have games on the weekends and sometime in the middle of the week, but they don't have it like every single day. These leagues are trying to kind of do that, where there's going to be games like every single day. I know the Premier League are doing that, where they're going to have like games pretty much on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So everybody, of course, can watch a game, and they don't have to wait until like the weekend to like watch all of these matches. And I also like the fact that they decided to do this, because that gives a chance for fans to kind of watch every single match. Whereas if these matches is taking place on the weekend and they are playing simultaneously, you aren't able to kind of get the action of all these matches. So I like the fact that they are kind of spread out, and that there are some games that is going to be happening every single day. Now, there are a couple of European Soccer League are not going to be returned, and the only five major European Soccer League is not returning is Ligue 1. Although there has been a rumor that they're saying that they are going to try to restart their season and try to reverse their original decision to cancel the season, which is kind of odd, consider we know that PSG is going to win that league. Although I guess the reason why they want to restart is because there is still a bit of a battle for second place and for that Champions League spot. And then of course, relegation wise, there are a couple of teams that were still battling for relegation, and that they want the season to restart because they want to at least have the season to conclude to see who exactly is going to be relegated. Like, it must be tough for some of those teams that either miss out on a Champions League spot, or they of course got relegated, even though they still had a couple of games left, so that they can of course play those games and maybe have a chance to avoid the drop. So we'll see whether or not if that's going to take place. Eredivisie and the Belgian Pro League are the other season that are officially canceled, and I haven't heard any rumor about those league potentially restarting. Now, the FA Cup is set to return in the fifth round on June 27, and the final is actually going to be taking place on August 1st. And there was actually a rumor saying that the final at Wembley is going to actually have fans attended the game, and that they expect to have like 25% capacity to allow fans to attend the FA Cup final. Now, I don't know exactly how are they going to do that, but I also would want to say that I'm not quite sure if that's going to happen, because of the fact that I know most of these sports league right now, their plan right now is to restart the season and get things going again. But I think they won't really think about when exactly they're going to have fans return in the stands until how their local government or how each country is going to feel like in terms of bringing fans back. And as I said before, when they do bring fans back into the stands, I don't expect them to bring back like everybody into the stands. They will pretty much maybe start with like 25% capacity and see how that is gonna go in the couple of weeks. Because the last thing we want is to basically said fans are welcome to come back to the stands, and then we of course have this whole danger of the fact that, you know, if you have that many fans attend the game, then the coronavirus will be spreading throughout the stands because of that. So yeah, I'm not quite sure if it's actually true, the fact that the FA Cup final is going to be take place with fans in the stands. And even if there's going to be fans in the stands and that there's going to be like 25% capacity, are they going to be kind of spread out throughout the stadium? I mean, I'm assuming they're going to have to spread out in the stadium. There's no way you're going to put like 25% capacity and put them in one area. And that, you know, it's important that you got to also know about the 6 feet kind of guideline, and that maybe they're going to use that as a way where every fans cannot be sitting next together within a 6 feet distance. Now, the Champions League is set to restart in August with a World Cup format in the last 8 upon voting. So there is a proposal right now in the European soccer body that talks about how they want the Champions League to be restarted, and that they are planning to restart after all these other European league is going to be over. And it's important to highlight the fact that they want to do like a World Cup format in the last eight of this team, because right now we are the Champions League is kind of stuck in a stage where there are a couple of teams that have already moved on into the last 8, and there's still a couple of second leg round of 16 games that is going to take place. And for those games that still have second leg of round of 16 taking place, I wonder how those are going to be. And that, you know, yes, you want to have like a last 8 kind of tournament where you have 8 more teams kind of battling out in a World Cup kind of format. But what about those games that still have teams that is playing in the round of 16, the second leg? Are those games are going to continue to play? I'm assuming most likely they are going to have those games continue to play, and then they'll probably start like a last 8 World Cup format, and that those games are kind of maybe act as like a playing game in terms of participating in this last 8 World Cup format that they are going to do. But, you know, we don't know if that's going to happen because the European soccer body hasn't really voted on this, but I've heard that they are set to vote on this in June 17th, and once they finish voting on whether or not if this is going to happen, I think we will get a clear answer of when exactly the Champions League is going to restart. Now, part of the thing that they also are voting for is to move the Champions League from Istanbul to Lisbon, and I also spelled Istanbul wrong there. Just eliminate the N there. So, yeah, the Turkish government says that they're still having this whole coronavirus problem, and it seemed like they are not fit in terms of hosting the tournament there. So now they decided to move it to Portugal, and they're going to be moving in Lisbon, the same stadium that hosted the 2014 Champions League final, and that they're expecting to happen in late August. Now, there was also no word of whether or not if the Champions League final will will have fans in attendance. And if they do have fans in attendance, I'm assuming it's probably going to be 25% capacity or just limited capacity of fans attending the game. So we'll see whether or not if that's going to be happening, as this is part of the plan that they're voting of how the Champions League is going to restart. Now, moving away from these European Soccer League and their plan to restart their season, to talk about some of these North American League, whether if some of these leagues that are near the end of the season and how they're going to restart, or some of these leagues that were about to start but unfortunately was delayed because of this whole pandemic. And we start off with Liga MX, where I mentioned, I think a couple of weeks ago, that their Clausura season has officially been canceled, and I've now found out more information that the season might be canceled, but they were still awarding teams that is going to be participating in the CONCACAF Champions League, and they're going to be awarding them based on when the season is canceled. So the standing when the season was canceled is basically the final standing of how the Clausura season is ending. And at the end of the day, it looks like Cruz Azul, of course, were able to grab that Champions League spot. Although I'm not quite sure that they actually grabbed the Champions League spot by being the top team and also win the trophy, or it's just that they basically only got awarded that and they didn't really kind of get award any trophy whatsoever, even though they finished at the top of the table when the season was canceled. The NWSL is set to become the first major sports league to return. Well, actually, that's kind of debatable because there's another sports right now that have already returned. But let's just say that if you do not include like car racing or just motorsports in general, NWSL is going to be the first sports league in America to return, as they're going to have a tournament in Salt Lake City on June 30th. I think I mentioned this a couple of days ago, and the tournament itself, it's going to be similar to the one that MLS is planning to do down in Orlando, and it's just going to be kind of like a round robin tournament to see who, of course, would win that tournament. Now, the only different about NWSL compared to MLS is that NWSL hasn't started their season, so technically this is going to be the first time that these teams are able to see some competitive action, so we'll see how that's going to affect in terms of that. And NWSL, just like MLS, all these tournament game is going to be played behind closed door, and that there's going to be no fans attending these games. Now, the USL Championship yesterday have just announced that they are going to restart on July 11th, although they didn't really give me a lot of information when they decide to restart on July 11th. Do they mean that they're going to have like a little mini tournament, just like what the NWSL and MLS is doing? I'm guessing they'll probably just restart the season and have like teams kind of continue to play and move right into the third week of the season, as in the second week of the season was when the USL was not canceled, but was actually being paused because of this whole pandemic. So yeah, we shall see if that is going to be the case, where if they do restart on July 11th, it's just going to be a case where we're going to now move into match week 3, and then we're not going to actually have like a little tournament just like what the NWSL and MLS is going to do. And also, it's key to note that this is from the USL Championship, and that I haven't heard any news about what USL League One is going to do in terms of their plan to restart. I have heard that the USL League Two, and for some of the conference, they have already canceled their season. So I'm assuming League Two probably is now cancel, and that there's not going to be a season in USL League Two, and that USL Championship might be the only league out of the 3 league that is currently owned by USL that have already got a date of when exactly they want to restart their season after it was delayed because of this whole pandemic. Now, the NISA or NISA have said a couple of months back that they have canceled the spring season, but they have already started to come up with plans of how the fall season is going to be happening, and that the fall season is actually going to be restarted in the East, with the Eastern Conference restarting on August 8th and the Western Conference restarting on September 5th. There's no further information of exactly if there's going to be fans attending those games, or if they're going to do what the USL Championship is going to do, where when the season starts, we're just going to continue to play these games and not have kind of like a mini tournament to kind of start the fall season of NISA. But it's kind of interesting. The Eastern Conference get a little bit of a head start during this. I'm not quite sure. Is it because of the fact that some teams in the Eastern Conference, their local government are allowing them to restart their season earlier than some of these Western Conference teams? I'm assuming most likely that could be the case, because most of the team in the Western Conference is from California. Actually, I think all of the teams in the Western Conference are from California, because you of course got the LA teams, the San Diego team, and you obviously got Oakland Roots, which I'm not quite sure if the Oakland City Council are going to allow the Roots to start playing these games, and especially have fans in attendance at its earliest, probably maybe in July or August. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see once they do restart the season, is there going to be fans attending these games, or are we just going to have like games where we're just going to have like match week 1, 2, 3, and 4, and there's going to be like an 8-week season, and there's going to be like no tournament style of play, just like what the NWSL and MLS is doing. Now, the Canadian Premier League have also planned to restart in mid-July, although that's really the only thing I've heard about the Canadian Premier League, and that the Canadian Premier League is one of the other sports league in North America that hasn't started yet. So if they are going to plan to start in mid-July, they of course will begin in match week 1, and that I think I've also heard that they're planning to shorten this season, because there was just no way in the world they were going to play all the games if they were going to start in mid-July. So yeah, we'll see what other plan is going to be in terms of that. But NASCAR is, of course, the only sports to return. As I mentioned, if you don't count motor sports, NWSL might be the first sports league to return. But in terms of just general in sports term, NASCAR is the only sports to return, and that they actually return back in the middle of May, and that I have watched a lot of NASCAR races. Believe it or not, I used to watch NASCAR a lot back in the 2010s, and that the only reason why I kind of stopped watching NASCAR is because I started to watch a lot of MLS games, and since MLS games is taking place right when NASCAR is happening, it is very hard to watch these races while also kind of concentrate these games that is happening in MLS. But yeah, if you like car racing, or if you just want sports, any kind of sports to be on TV, NASCAR is really your only bet in terms of the only sports that is returned as of this point. Now, let us now get to the MLB and the other leagues that I like the most. And yeah, let's just say that the MLB is really the elephant in the room in terms of these 5 major leagues in America, because not only they are the only major 5 leagues to have a real plan to return to their season, or actually start their season, but there seems to be some heated kind of battle between the MLB Players Association and also the owners and the league, and that in some way the MLB, their situation is kind of similar to what MLS had a couple of days back, where the league decided that they want the players to agree on this 80-game proposal to start the season, and then the players basically voted on a counter offer saying that we want 114 games, and then the owner basically say no, and that they are also not even going to ask the PA to have any counter proposal, and that there's even a rumor that they have put a proposal where now we're only going to have 50 game that is going to take place. And unlike in MLS, where eventually cooler heads prevail and both sides agree on how they're going to restart the season, that is not the case in MLB. Like, there is still a heated debate between both sides right now, and that we could also head to a point where if both sides does not agree, then the season actually will not happen, and that there technically is going to be kind of like a lockout that is going to be happening in MLB this season. And that is just incredibly frustrating, and that this is also another league where you have owners that are kind of taking advantage of this situation to kind of make an excuse, saying that, well, we want to have this we want to have as much money as possible, and that, you know, we don't usually have a good relationship with the Players Association, and if they don't agree of what we're gonna say, we're going to put the hammer and say that we're not going to have the season. And like I said, unlike where MLS eventually things kind of figure out, this is still an ongoing battle, and the longer this ongoing battle is going to continue between the Players Association and also the leagues and the owners, the more likely we're not going to have a season in MLB, and there's not going to be baseball this season, and that would just be very devastating in terms. So just kind of me wanted to hope that baseball eventually would come back, and especially a guy that does watch baseball a lot. So yeah, I'm just praying eventually they'll figure this out. Like, you know, something's gonna have to give in terms of both sides, and how both sides eventually going to have to agree to each other. But as of now, I haven't heard any news talk about how both sides has even came close to reaching an agreement of how to start a potential shortened season this year in the MLB. Now, NBA have also said that they are going to restart soon, and that they're actually going to restart on July 31st, and they technically actually have a schedule of how it's going to be taking place. They said that the finals is going to be taking place in October, and that the season for, or the date for next season is going to start in December, and that they're also going to have like a 22 team kind of format, with a couple of the teams that is not going to be part of this format, and most of those teams, well, not most of the team, but all of those teams that is not part of the format are near the bottom of the table. But they're going to have kind of something similar to what MLS is doing, where they're going to have a couple of group games before starting the playoffs, whereas in the NBA they're just going to have, I think, 8 regular season games for all 22 of these teams. Well, actually, they're going to have 8 games with splitting into 2 groups, with there's going to be like 13 teams in the Western Conference, 9 teams in the Eastern Conference. They're going to have 8 of these games to kind of fight it out, and the top 8 teams from both of the conference will be playing in the playoffs to see who exactly is going to win the title this season. So yeah, we'll see if that is going well. I think that is going to be the plan that is going to be take place. And also, NBA is going to be taking place in Orlando, and it's actually going to be taking place the same area where MLS is going to restart their season, which is at the ESPN World Sports Complex. Now, the NHL have also planned to have a expanded 24-team playoffs, and will be host in Two Hub City, although they haven't give us any suggestion of when exactly that 24-team playoffs is going to happen, and where exactly those Two Hub City is going to happen. By the way, their kind of format is something a little bit similar to NBA, where they left out some of the worst team in the league in this new format. Although, unlike the NBA, where there's going to be some regular season game remain, the NHL basically just jumped right into the Stanley Cup playoffs, and that they're also going to have these kind of playing games for some of these wild card teams to play in. I heard like a best of 5 series before moving on to like a best of 7 series, and moving on into like a first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But there are no date in terms of when exactly this is going to happen, or where exactly these hub city is going to be, because I think most of these the NHL, I think, is the only league where, well, actually, no, I take back what I said. I was going to say that they're the only league that actually have like hub city or something like that, but at the same time, I could also look at like MLS, NWSL, and also NBA kind of play in a hub city in Orlando to kind of have these tournaments. So yeah, just disregard what I was about to say, that they're the only league to actually play all these kind of playoff games doing a hub city. And finally, America's most popular league, the NFL, is still intended to start the season on time in September. I haven't heard a lot of news talk about whether or not if there's even going to be any rumor that could be pushed back, and what's going to happen in the preseason, because preseason starts in August, and knowing that some of these leagues are unwillingly to try to start their season at the earliest late July and maybe into early August, will the preseason actually going to be effect? Like right now, the only thing I've heard about the NFL has been the ongoing situation with the George Floyd protests, and also the whole racism part, where people have been kind of like speaking out about this stuff, and that we also have a couple of players decided to make some very dumb statement, and I know who exactly it is, and you probably know who exactly it is, and now there seems to be a PR kind of nightmare between that. So yeah, I mean, while they of course have that issue, hopefully they'll announce some plans in terms of whether or not if they're still going to be intended to start the season on time in September. And also they haven't had any news talk about how if there is actually going to be fans in attendance once they start the season in September. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of my kind of looks of what other leagues are trying to do in terms of restarting their season. We can see most of these leagues have very similar plans in terms of how they are going to restart the season. But either way, once these league does restart it, and even if these leagues are going to restart without fans, I'm just glad that sports is coming back. Like we're getting into a point where in a couple of weeks, pretty much sports is going to be back to normal, and that the only thing that might not seem normal is that there's going to be no fans in attendance, and that they're going to play in these kind of tournament and these format kind of way that is kind of very unfamiliar in terms of how to like restart the regular season. It's almost like most of these leagues are just go straight into a playoffs, and that we're basically going to be having a period when sports does return that we're going to have many different leagues that is going to have like a playoff style format to restart their season. But either way, hope you guys enjoy this video, and I of course will see you guys next time.